Have you ever stared at a map of Indonesia and noticed a vast stretch of green in the heart of Borneo, then wondered what stories lie hidden there? Not the stories that dominate headlines, not the destinations that flood social media feeds, not the places that millions of tourists visit every year, but the stories carried by rivers, the stories guarded by forests, the stories written by generations who built their lives far from the spotlight. Because deep within the southern reaches of central Kalimantan, there is a land where history, wilderness, resilience, and ambition flow together like the waters of a mighty river. That land is Seruyan, and once you understand its story, you may never look at the map of Indonesia the same way again. Seruyan Regency, located in central Kalimantan province, covers an immense area of more than 16,400 square kilometers. To put that into perspective, it is larger than many countries around the world. Yet, despite its size, much of Seruyan remains one of Indonesia's lesser-known regions. In the first half of 2024, its population stood at approximately 158,000 people, creating a population density of only about 10 people per square kilometre. Imagine vast landscapes where forests stretch toward the horizon. Imagine rivers winding through untouched wilderness. Imagine communities connected not only by roads, but by waterways that have shaped life for centuries. At the centre of this remarkable regency stands Kuala Pembuang, the capital city that serves as the gateway to Seruyan's past, present and future. But to truly understand Seruyan, we must travel back more than 2 centuries. Long before modern Indonesia existed, long before highways and administrative boundaries were drawn, the region was known as Pembuang. Historical records reveal that in 1780, the area was governed by Raden Jaya under the authority of the Banjar Sultanate. This was a period when rivers functioned as highways, when kingdoms rose and fell through trade networks, and when the destiny of entire regions was shaped by strategic waterways. The Seruyan River was not merely a river, it was life itself. Then came one of the most significant turning points in regional history. On August 13, 1787, Sultan Tahmidullah II transferred authority over the Pembuang territory from the Banjar Sultanate to the Dutch East India Company. This event connected the region to the expanding colonial system that would transform much of the Indonesian archipelago. As the 19th century progressed, colonial administration reshaped the region's political structure. Maps were redrawn, districts were reorganized, governments changed. Yet the people remained, the forests remained, and the Seruyan River continued its journey from the mountains to the sea. By the mid-1800s, the area had become integrated into Dutch colonial administrative divisions within Borneo. Historical documents from 1849 and 1855 show how Pembuang became part of larger colonial territories designed to improve governance and resource management. These changes may seem administrative on paper, but for local communities, they represented the gradual transformation of everyday life. During the era of the Pembuang district, the region consisted of 13 settlements. Some of these names still echo through Seruyan today: Berati, Telaga Pulang, Sembulu, Pembuang Hulu, Sandul, Sukamandang, Rantau Pulut, Tumbang Kale, Tumbang Manjul, and several others. These villages formed the foundation upon which modern Seruyan would eventually be built. Each settlement had its own traditions, its own struggles, its own dreams, yet all were connected through the powerful river system that remains central to the region even today. The importance of geography soon became clear. In 1902, the colonial administration relocated its district centre from Telaga Pulang to Pembuang Hulu. Just 3 years later, another move followed. the capital shifted once again, this time to Kuala Pembuang. Why? Because location matters. Kuala Pembuang sat on the southern coast, providing better access for government administration, transportation, and economic activity. Even then, leaders recognized the strategic significance of the coast. That decision continues to influence Seruyan's development more than a century later. Then came one of the most dramatic chapters in Indonesian history, the struggle for independence. During the Indonesian National Revolution, Seruyan became more than a remote frontier. It became a battleground for freedom. In the village of Tumbang Manjul, Captain Mulyono established a military base for Indonesian fighters. Together with his forces, he launched attacks against Dutch troops who sought to restore colonial control. These operations were daring, dangerous, and deeply symbolic. They demonstrated that the spirit of independence was alive not only in major cities, but also in the remote interior of Borneo. Eventually, Dutch forces pursued Captain Mulyono and his men. The pressure forced him to leave Tumbang Manjul and escape, yet his legacy endured. Today, his name remains remembered through the region's airport, a reminder that freedom was earned through sacrifice. Following independence, administrative changes accelerated. In 1946, the former Pumbuang district became Seruyan sub-district. 1 year later, the territory was divided into Seruyan Hilir and Seruyan Hulu. As populations grew and communities expanded, further divisions followed. New districts emerged. New administrative centers were established. Government services reached deeper into the region. These changes reflected a larger truth. Seruyan was growing, not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, village by village, community by community, generation by generation. In 1963, the Seruyan Kawedanan administration was officially formed. 5 districts came under its authority, with Kuala Pumbuang serving as the administrative center. This marked an important milestone. For the first time, the region possessed a stronger institutional identity of its own. Then came another historic step. In 1965, preparations began for the establishment of Seruyan as a second-level administrative region. The dream of local autonomy was beginning to take shape. However, achieving full regency status would require patience. Years turned into decades, governments changed, national priorities shifted, yet the aspiration remained alive. Finally, in 2002, that dream became reality. Through national legislation, Seruyan officially became a regency of Central Kalimantan. The announcement represented far more than an administrative adjustment. For local residents, it was recognition. Recognition of their history, recognition of their identity, recognition of their potential. Kuala Pumbuang became the regency capital. A new chapter had begun. But history alone does not define Seruyan. Its geography is equally extraordinary. Look at a map and you will immediately notice something remarkable. Seruyan stretches from the Shuana Mountains in the north all the way to the Java Sea in the south. This creates an incredible diversity of landscapes. In the southern regions, vast lowlands dominate the terrain. Near rivers and coastal areas, the land is relatively flat. Further north, rolling hills begin to emerge. Beyond them, rugged landscapes rise toward the mountains. This variety influences everything: agriculture, transportation, settlement patterns, even culture. Yet no geographical feature is more important than the Seruyan River. Stretching approximately 350 kilometers, the river serves as the lifeline of the Regency. Beginning in the northern mountains and flowing southward into the Java Sea, it connects communities across enormous distances. Its tributaries support transportation, irrigation, fisheries, and daily life. For generations, families have relied on its waters for drinking, washing, farming, and travel. The river is not merely a natural feature, it is the heartbeat of Seruyan. The climate reinforces this connection with nature. Like much of central Kalimantan, Seruyan experiences a tropical rainforest climate. Temperatures typically range between 22 and 34 degrees Celsius. Humidity remains high throughout the year. Rainfall is abundant. These conditions support rich ecosystems that rank among the most biologically important environments on Earth. Here, forests do not simply grow, they thrive. Towering trees, complex wetlands, and diverse wildlife create landscapes that remain essential to global biodiversity. Yet modern Seruyan is not defined solely by history or nature. It is also shaped by economic transformation. Agriculture forms the backbone of the local economy. Palm oil production in particular has become a major driver of development. Across central and northern Seruyan, plantations and processing facilities contribute significantly to employment and regional income. Thousands of independent farmers participate in this industry, seeking better livelihoods and economic opportunity. For many families, palm oil has brought access to education, healthcare, housing, and improved standards of living. At the same time, growth has not come without challenges. Land management, environmental sustainability, community rights, economic equity. These issues continue to spark important conversations throughout the region. One example emerged in 2023 when tensions between local communities and palm oil companies led to significant protests. Residents demanded fulfillment of plasma plantation commitments that they believed had been promised. The events drew attention far beyond Seruyan. They highlighted a reality faced by many developing regions. Economic growth alone is not enough. Development must also be inclusive, transparent, and beneficial to local communities. The challenges are real, but so is the determination to find solutions. Infrastructure represents another critical component of Seruyan's future. The development of Segintung Port reflects ambitions to strengthen regional logistics and trade networks. Meanwhile, Captain Mulyono Airport serves as a vital transportation link connecting the Regency to wider Indonesia. Every new road, every upgraded facility, every transportation project carries the potential to transform lives. Because infrastructure is not merely concrete and steel, it is opportunity, it is access, it is connection. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Seruyan offers. The story of Seruyan is not a story of sudden success. It is a story of persistence, a story of communities building a future while honoring their past, a story of people adapting to changing times without forgetting where they came from. When many people think about Indonesia, they picture Jakarta, Bali, Yogyakarta, or famous tourist destinations. But Indonesia's true strength has always come from places like Seruyan, places where rivers remain central to life, places where history is remembered through generations, places where development unfolds quietly, away from international attention, places where ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things every day. The world often celebrates destinations that shine brightly under the spotlight, but some of the most meaningful stories exist beyond that light. They exist in the forests of Borneo, they exist along the banks of the Seruyan River, they exist in villages connected by shared history and common purpose, and they exist in the hearts of the people who call Seruyan home. So the next time you look at a map of Indonesia, do not focus only on the places everyone already knows. Look deeper. Look towards central Kalimantan. Look toward the river that flows from mountain to sea. Look toward a regency built on resilience, shaped by history, and driven by hope. Because Seruyan is more than a name on a map. It is more than an administrative region. It is more than statistics and boundaries. It is a living story. A story of rivers, a story of struggle, a story of growth, a story of identity, and above all, a story that deserves to be heard by the world. But the deeper you travel into the story of Seruyan, the more you realize that this regency is not merely defined by what has happened here, it is defined by what is still possible. Because some places inherit greatness from powerful kingdoms, some places inherit greatness from enormous wealth, and some places inherit greatness from something even more valuable: resilience. Seruyan belongs to the third category. For centuries, life here has been shaped by forces far larger than any individual. The rhythm of monsoon rains, the rise and fall of river levels, the challenges of isolation, the transformation of economies, the pressures of modernization. Yet through every era, people adapted, they learned, they endured, and they kept moving forward. Imagine what life looked like generations ago, before paved roads connected communities, before mobile phones reached remote villages, before modern transportation linked the interior to the coast. For many residents, rivers were highways, boats were lifelines. The Seruyan River was not just water flowing toward the sea, it was the region's transportation network, its marketplace, its communication system, its source of food, its source of survival. Entire communities grew along its banks because the river provided what roads could not. Even today, despite modernization, the importance of the river remains deeply woven into daily life. Children still grow up watching boats travel across its waters. Fishermen still depend on its resources. Farmers still rely on its ecosystems. Families still maintain traditions connected to the waterways that have sustained generations. This relationship between people and nature is one of Seruyan's defining characteristics. In many parts of the world, rapid development has created a growing separation between humans and the environment. But in Seruyan, nature remains present in everyday life. The forests are not distant scenery, they are neighbors. The rivers are not attractions, they are necessities. The wetlands are not empty spaces, they are living ecosystems supporting countless forms of life. And that connection matters, because the island of Borneo is one of the most ecologically significant places on Earth. Its rainforests are among the oldest tropical forests in existence. Many species found here cannot be found anywhere else. Every tree, every wetland, every river corridor contributes to a larger environmental system that influences biodiversity on a global scale. Seruyan occupies a strategic position within this extraordinary landscape. Its forests and waterways form part of a broader ecological network stretching across central Kalimantan. These ecosystems help regulate water cycles, store massive amounts of carbon, support wildlife populations, and sustain local livelihoods. In an era when environmental issues dominate international discussions, regions like Seruyan are becoming increasingly important. The future of these landscapes matters not only to Indonesia, it matters to the world. Yet, Seruyan's importance is not limited to environmental value. It also reflects a larger story about regional development in Indonesia. For decades, Indonesia has worked to ensure that growth reaches beyond major urban centres. The goal has never been simply to build bigger cities. The goal has been to create opportunity across the archipelago. That mission is especially relevant in places like Seruyan, because development here carries unique challenges. Distances are enormous, population density is low, infrastructure costs are high, natural conditions can be difficult. Yet these same realities create opportunities. Large land areas provide room for agricultural expansion. Strategic coastal access offers potential for maritime trade. Abundant natural resources support economic activity. Young populations provide human capital for future growth. This combination of challenges and opportunities defines much of Seruyan's development journey. Consider the role of agriculture. For many residents, farming is more than an occupation, it is a way of life. Generations have cultivated the land, adapting techniques to local conditions and passing knowledge from parents to children. Rice fields, smallholder farms, plantations, fisheries, and forest-based livelihoods all contribute to the local economy. Each harvest represents months of effort. Each growing season carries risks and rewards, and each success story reflects the determination of people working closely with nature. Palm oil has become one of the most influential sectors within this economic landscape. Supporters emphasize its ability to generate employment, improve incomes, and attract investment. Critics raise concerns about environmental impacts and social challenges. The reality is complex, and that complexity reflects broader debates occurring across Indonesia and throughout the developing world. How can economic growth be balanced with environmental sustainability? How can investment create benefits that are shared fairly? How can communities participate meaningfully in decisions affecting their future? These are not easy questions, but they are important questions, and Seruyan finds itself at the center of many of these conversations. The answers will help shape not only the region's future, but also the future of development across similar areas of Southeast Asia. At the same time, infrastructure continues to play a transformative role. Imagine a student in a remote village gaining faster access to educational resources. Imagine farmers reaching markets more efficiently. Imagine healthcare services becoming easier to access. Imagine entrepreneurs connecting with customers far beyond their immediate surroundings. Infrastructure makes these possibilities real. Every bridge reduces isolation. Every road creates new connections. Every transportation improvement expands opportunity. This is why projects such as ports, airports, and transportation corridors matter so much. They are not simply construction projects, they are investments in human potential. And human potential may be Seruyan's most valuable resource of all. Because behind every statistic is a person. Behind every population figure is a family. Behind every development plan is a dream. A young student hoping to become a teacher, an entrepreneur hoping to build a business, a farmer hoping for a better harvest, a parent hoping to create opportunities for the next generation. These aspirations are universal. Whether someone lives in a global capital city or a riverside village in central Kalimantan, the hopes are remarkably similar. People want security. People want opportunity. People want dignity. People want a future better than the present. And that is why stories like Seruyan's matter. They remind us that progress is not measured only by skyscrapers. It is not measured only by stock markets. It is not measured only by tourist arrivals. True progress is measured by the lives of ordinary people, the communities that become stronger, the children who gain access to education, the families who achieve greater stability, the opportunities that did not exist before. When viewed through that lens, Seruyan's journey becomes far more inspiring, because this is a region that has repeatedly reinvented itself. From a territory under the Banjar Sultanate, to a colonial district, to a revolutionary battleground, to an administrative region, to a modern regency with growing ambitions. Each chapter built upon the last, each generation inherited challenges and opportunities. Each generation added its own contribution to the story. And now, a new generation is writing the next chapter. Young people in Seruyan are growing up in a world very different from that experienced by their grandparents. Digital technology has expanded access to information. Communication is faster than ever before. Economic opportunities are increasingly diverse. Global trends reach even remote communities through smartphones and internet connections. This creates both possibilities and responsibilities. The possibility to innovate, the possibility to compete, the possibility to connect with the wider world, and the responsibility to preserve cultural identity while embracing change. Because development should never require forgetting who you are. The strongest communities are often those that successfully combine tradition with innovation, history with progress, identity with opportunity. Seruyan has the potential to become exactly that kind of place. A place where heritage remains respected, a place where natural resources are managed responsibly, a place where economic growth creates widespread benefits, a place where future generations can thrive without losing their connection to the land and rivers that shaped their ancestors. And perhaps that is the most powerful lesson hidden within Seruyan's story. The future is not something that simply arrives. The future is something people build, day by day, decision by decision, generation by generation. The forests of Seruyan have witnessed centuries of change. The Seruyan River has flowed through eras of kingdoms, colonialism, revolution, and independence. The people have endured every transformation, and still the story continues, not finished, not complete, still unfolding, still evolving, still waiting for the next chapter to be written. Because somewhere along the banks of the Seruyan River tonight, a child is dreaming about the future, a future that may look very different from the past, a future shaped by education, innovation, and opportunity, a future built upon the foundations laid by generations before. And perhaps decades from now, when people look back at this moment in history, they will see it as another turning point, a moment when Seruyan continued its journey from a hidden corner of Borneo toward becoming one of central Kalimantan's most promising regions. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through perseverance, through vision, through hard work, and through the unwavering determination of the people who call this remarkable land home. Because the greatest stories are not always the loudest. Sometimes they flow quietly like a river, steady, powerful, enduring, and impossible to stop. That is the story of Seruyan, and its most exciting chapter may still be ahead. Now, pause for a moment and imagine standing on the banks of the Seruyan River at sunrise. The first golden light breaks across the water. A thin layer of mist drifts above the surface. The sounds of the forest slowly awaken. Birds begin calling from distant trees. The river moves silently toward the sea, just as it has for thousands of years. And suddenly, you understand something important. Long before borders were drawn, long before governments were established, long before maps carried the name Seruyan, nature was already here. The river was already flowing. The forests were already growing. The story of this land began long before human history ever recorded it. This is what makes Seruyan so extraordinary. Its history is not measured only in decades or centuries. It is measured in landscapes, in ecosystems, in rivers that have shaped entire civilizations, in forests that existed before many of the world's great cities were even founded. The northern reaches of Seruyan connect to the ancient mountain systems of Borneo. These upland regions serve as water towers for vast areas of central Kalimantan. Rain that falls in the mountains eventually begins an incredible journey. Tiny streams merge into larger waterways. Those waterways become rivers. Those rivers sustain forests, wetlands, farms, and communities. Eventually, they flow into the Java Sea. Every drop of water tells a story of connection, a connection between mountains and oceans, between forests and villages, between the past and the future. This interconnected system helps explain why Seruyan is far more important than many people realize. What happens in its forests can influence water systems far beyond its borders. What happens along its rivers affects communities downstream. What happens to its ecosystems can have consequences reaching far into the future. That responsibility is enormous, but it is also an opportunity. Because regions like Seruyan are increasingly becoming examples of how humanity can balance development with conservation, the world is searching for answers. How do we create economic growth while protecting nature? How do we improve living standards while preserving biodiversity? How do we build prosperity without sacrificing sustainability? These are among the defining questions of the 21st century, and places like Seruyan are helping shape the answers. Travel through the Regency and you quickly notice something unique. Life moves at a different rhythm, not slower, not faster, different. The rhythm follows rivers, the rhythm follows harvest seasons, the rhythm follows rainfall patterns, the rhythm follows traditions passed down across generations. In major cities, people often measure time in minutes. In places like Seruyan, people understand time in seasons. They understand that forests grow slowly, that rivers carve landscapes over centuries, that meaningful progress often requires patience. This perspective carries wisdom because modern society frequently celebrates speed, faster technology, faster transportation, faster communication. Yet many of the most important achievements in human history were built gradually. Education, institutions, communities, civilizations, they required time. Seruyan's development reflects this reality. Its journey has never been about overnight transformation. It has been about steady progress, the kind of progress that survives, the kind of progress that endures. And endurance is a recurring theme throughout Seruyan's story. Consider the generations who lived through colonial rule, the generations who witnessed independence, the generations who saw administrative reforms, the generations who experienced economic transitions. Each faced uncertainty, each faced challenges, each faced moments when the future seemed unclear. Yet they continued building, continued adapting, continued believing. That spirit remains visible today. You see it in teachers working to educate children in remote communities. You see it in healthcare workers serving rural populations. You see it in farmers cultivating land despite unpredictable conditions. You see it in entrepreneurs creating opportunities where others see limitations. You see it in young people determined to shape a better future. Because every community possesses hidden strengths, and one of Seruyan's greatest strengths is its people. Population statistics can never fully capture human potential. A number on a census report cannot measure ambition, it cannot measure creativity, it cannot measure determination. Yet these qualities often become the most important drivers of progress. History repeatedly demonstrates this truth. The most successful societies are not necessarily those with the greatest resources. They are often those that invest in people, education, skills, innovation, leadership, opportunity. When people thrive, communities thrive. When communities thrive, regions thrive. And when regions thrive, nations become stronger. That is why the future of Seruyan depends not only on infrastructure or investment, it depends on human development, on empowering the next generation, on ensuring that young people have access to the tools they need to succeed. Imagine the possibilities. Students from Seruyan becoming scientists, engineers, doctors, entrepreneurs, researchers, artists, leaders. Imagine innovations emerging from communities that many people have never heard of. Imagine solutions developed by people who understand local challenges better than anyone else. History is full of examples where extraordinary achievements emerged from unexpected places. There is no reason Seruyan cannot become one of those places, because potential is not determined by geography, potential is determined by vision. and vision has always been one of humanity's most powerful forces. Every great achievement begins with someone imagining something better, a better community, a better future, a better possibility. That process is happening right now throughout Seruyan. Families investing in education, communities improving local infrastructure, businesses creating jobs, organizations supporting development initiatives, government institutions planning for future growth. These efforts may not always make international headlines, but they matter. In fact, they matter tremendously, because real transformation often happens quietly, one classroom at a time, one road at a time, one opportunity at a time, one generation at a time. And perhaps that is why Seruyan deserves greater recognition, not because it seeks attention, not because it demands the spotlight, but because its story reflects something universal: the power of perseverance, the value of community, the importance of hope. Across the world, countless people live in places that rarely appear in travel magazines or global news broadcasts, yet their stories matter, their contributions matter, their dreams matter. Seruyan reminds us of that truth. It reminds us that significance is not determined by popularity. A place does not need to be famous to be important. A community does not need global recognition to possess extraordinary value. A region does not need millions of visitors to have a remarkable story. Sometimes greatness exists quietly, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to listen, waiting for someone to understand. And when you finally understand Seruyan, you begin to see something larger. You begin to see Indonesia differently. Because Indonesia is not only a collection of famous destinations, it is a collection of stories, thousands of stories, each region contributing something unique, each community preserving its own identity, each landscape shaping its own history. Seruyan is one of those stories, a story written by rivers, a story protected by forests, a story strengthened by resilience, a story driven by possibility. And perhaps one day, when future generations look back, they will recognize that the greatest asset Seruyan ever possessed was not its land, not its resources, not its infrastructure, but its people. People willing to work, willing to adapt, willing to dream, willing to build. Because in the end, every river eventually reaches the sea, but the journey is what gives the river meaning. And the journey of Seruyan is far from over. The river is still flowing, the forests are still standing, the communities are still growing, the dreams are still alive. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the next chapter is already beginning. A chapter that will be written by a new generation, a chapter filled with challenges, opportunities, and discoveries. A chapter that could transform Seruyan in ways that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Yet no matter what changes come, one thing will remain constant: the spirit of this land, the spirit carried by the waters of the Seruyan River, the spirit inherited from centuries of history, the spirit that has survived every challenge and every transformation, a spirit of resilience, a spirit of determination, a spirit of hope. And as long as that spirit endures, the future of Seruyan will remain as vast as the forests that surround it and as limitless as the river that continues its timeless journey from the mountains of Borneo to the sea. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about Seruyan is this: the story is still being written, right now, at this very moment, while the river continues its endless journey toward the Java Sea, while the forests breathe beneath the tropical sky, while villages wake each morning to begin another day. History is unfolding, not in textbooks, not in museums, but in the lives of ordinary people. Because history is not only about kings, governments, or major events. History is also about farmers preparing their fields before sunrise, teachers opening classroom doors, fishermen navigating rivers they have known since childhood, parents making sacrifices so their children can dream bigger than they ever could. These are the stories that rarely appear in headlines, yet these stories are the foundation of every great society, and they are everywhere in Seruyan. Travel through the Regency and you will encounter communities shaped by both tradition and change. Elders who remember when transportation depended almost entirely on rivers. Young people who navigate a digital world connected to global networks. Families whose lives bridge two different eras, one foot rooted in tradition, one foot stepping into the future. This balance is not always easy. Every developing region faces difficult questions. How do you modernize without losing identity? How do you create opportunity without sacrificing culture? How do you embrace progress while protecting the values that define a community? These questions do not have simple answers, yet Seruyan continues searching for them. And perhaps that search itself is a sign of strength. Because the strongest societies are not those that avoid challenges, they are those willing to confront them, willing to learn, willing to adapt, willing to improve. Throughout history, rivers have often symbolized the passage of time. The Seruyan River is no exception. Generation after generation has stood along its banks. Children became parents, parents became grandparents, entire lifetimes unfolded beside these waters. The river witnessed celebrations, it witnessed struggles, it witnessed moments of triumph, it witnessed moments of hardship. Yet through every chapter, it continued flowing, steady, persistent, unstoppable. In many ways, the river reflects the people of Seruyan themselves, because resilience is not about avoiding obstacles, it is about continuing forward despite them. And Seruyan's history is filled with examples of resilience. Colonial transitions, political change, administrative transformation, economic evolution, environmental challenges, social change. Every generation faced its own tests. Every generation encountered uncertainty. Every generation was forced to adapt. And every generation left behind something valuable for those who followed. That legacy is visible everywhere. It is visible in schools educating future leaders. It is visible in places of worship that unite communities. It is visible in local traditions preserved across decades. It is visible in infrastructure connecting once isolated areas. It is visible in the determination of people who continue believing in a better tomorrow. Sometimes the outside world views remote regions only through statistics, population numbers, economic indicators, maps, development reports. These measurements are important, but they never tell the full story, because a region is more than data. A region is human experience, it is memory, it is identity, it is belonging. And Seruyan possesses all of these in abundance. There is something profoundly inspiring about communities that continue moving forward despite limited attention from the wider world. Communities that keep building, keep improving, keep dreaming, not because recognition is guaranteed, but because progress itself matters. That mindset can teach the world an important lesson. Success does not always arrive with applause. Growth does not always happen under bright lights. Sometimes the most meaningful achievements occur quietly, far from cameras, far from headlines, far from public attention. Yet they change lives all the same. And that is exactly what has been happening across Seruyan. For years, for decades, for generations. Each new school built, each healthcare service expanded, each business established, each road improved, each opportunity created. Together, these small steps form something much larger, a future shaped not by chance, but by effort, not by luck, but by perseverance, not by promises alone, but by action. Imagine what Seruyan could look like 20 years from now. Imagine stronger transportation networks connecting communities more efficiently. Imagine expanded educational opportunities reaching every corner of the Regency. Imagine sustainable industries creating jobs while protecting natural resources. Imagine young entrepreneurs building businesses that compete nationally and internationally. Imagine technology helping bridge geographic distances that once seemed impossible to overcome. Imagine a generation empowered by knowledge, innovation, and confidence. These possibilities are not fantasies, they are opportunities. Opportunities that become reality when vision is matched by commitment. And commitment has never been in short supply among the people of Seruyan. The region's future will not be determined solely by government policies. It will not be determined solely by investments. It will not be determined solely by infrastructure projects. Its future will ultimately be determined by people willing to take initiative, people willing to solve problems, people willing to create opportunities, people willing to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. History consistently proves that human potential is the most powerful force for change. Natural resources can create wealth, infrastructure can create connections, technology can create efficiency, but people create progress, people create innovation, people create transformation. And that is why the future of Seruyan should inspire optimism, because despite every challenge, the region possesses something invaluable: human potential, the ability to adapt, the ability to learn, the ability to build, the ability to dream. And dreams matter. Every major achievement in human history began as an idea, a possibility, a vision, something that did not yet exist. Before a bridge is built, someone imagines it. Before a business succeeds, someone believes in it. Before a community grows, someone invests in it. Before a future becomes reality, someone dares to dream it. Across Seruyan today, countless people are doing exactly that: dreaming, planning, working, building, preparing for the future. And perhaps years from now, when future generations tell the story of Seruyan, they will speak about this era as a period of transformation, a period when opportunity expanded, a period when communities grew stronger, a period when ambition met determination, a period when the foundations of a brighter future were laid. Because every great story has defining moments when people choose to move forward rather than remain still, moments when challenges become opportunities, moments when hope becomes action. Seruyan is living through those moments right now, and that is why its story deserves to be shared. Not because it is perfect, no place is. Not because its journey has been easy, it has not. But because its story reflects one of the most powerful truths in human history: that progress is possible, that resilience matters, that communities can overcome obstacles, that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things, and that even in places far from the spotlight, remarkable stories are unfolding every single day. The world often searches for inspiration in famous places, yet sometimes inspiration is found where few people are looking: along a river in central Kalimantan, within communities connected by history and hope, within a regency called Seruyan, a land shaped by water, a land shaped by forests, a land shaped by perseverance, a land still writing its future. And as long as the Seruyan River continues flowing from the mountains to the sea, that future will continue moving forward as well, steady, determined, enduring, just like the people who call this extraordinary land home.